it's Amelia. Welcome back to my channel and happy Wednesday. So today we're doing another amigurumi crochet tutorial in the Avatar series. I'm going to be showing you how to make Naga from Korra, which is the sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender. She is the polar bear dog that the main character Korra has as like a best friend, kind of like Appa is to Aang, Naga is to Korra. It's a simple pattern, but it's a little different from my other tutorials because it's not just doing shape and then sewing them together. I'm making the head and the body in one piece, which is always really fun because it's kind of like sculpting. I get to kind of sculpt the shape out of the crochet stitches, so I really enjoy doing that, and I think that she turned out really cute. And if you don't know how to crochet, do not worry, I teach you how to do all the stitches. It shouldn't be super hard, so it's a fine beginner project, and all you're gonna need are 2 colors of yarn. You're gonna need white yarn and you're gonna need black or brown to sew on the eyes and nose. And I use Caron Simply Soft yarn. I'm gonna be using a G crochet hook, scissors, a yarn needle, and of course stuffing, and that's all you're gonna need for this tutorial. So the first thing that you need to learn is a slip knot. So you make a slip knot by looping the yarn around 2 of your fingers and then pushing it back up in between, and then grab that loop and then grab the tail and pull, and you'll make a little slip knot that you can adjust the size of with the shorter end of the yarn. So the next big step for crocheting is called a chain. So a chain is where you yarn over and then you pull through the loop on your hook, and that's one chain. So we're going to start by making Naga's head. So the first thing we did was chain 2, and now I'm going to stitch back into that first chain, and I'm going to do a stitch called a single crochet, and that's where you go through your stitch and you yarn over and you come back through and you'll have 2 loops on your hook, then you yarn over again and go through both of those loops. And I'm going to do 5 single crochets into this first chain, and when you're done your piece will look like this. And then I like to pull on the tail and cinch that in. For our second row, I'm going to do 2 single crochet stitches into each of the 1 stitches that I had, turning my 5 stitches into 10. When you're done, your piece will look like this. We're going to start to make it curve back to be part of Naga's nose, and I'm going to go ahead and put my hook through my last stitch and pull the tail through to act as a marker. So now I know exactly where the row begins, so I don't have to worry about counting all my stitches, but we're just going to do 1 row of just 1 stitch in each stitch around. For row 4, we're going to do the exact same thing and just do 1 stitch in each stitch around, so we'll have 10 stitches. So now this is going to be Naga's little nose, and so now we want to start getting bigger for her head on one side, but keep it kind of flat on the bottom for her chin. That's going to involve increased stitches on this half and not increased stitches on this half. So for the first 4 stitches, I did 2 single crochet stitches in the first 4, so now we have 8 stitches, and now I'm just going to stitch around the last 6 stitches so that altogether we'll have 14. So now your piece is going to look like this. So for the next row, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but a little bit more on the top. So that's 2 single crochet stitches into the first 6 stitches, which is 12, and then we'll do 1 single crochet stitch in the following 8. So altogether we'll have 20 stitches all the way around, and your piece will look like this. And now I'm going to do 1 stitch in each stitch around for 2 rows. So tell me your honest feelings about Korra versus Avatar, because I actually haven't finished watching Korra, which I know is kind of bad, but I watched Avatar and I thought it was so fun, and of course I was excited to watch Korra, but everybody told me that it wasn't as good as Avatar, so I went into it already having that impression, and then honestly I found it to be very true. Korra just irritated the heck out of me. She was so like rude to her parents all the time, and I was like, what is happening? Because I loved Avatar because it was such a good kid show and it had such good examples, and I just thought it was really appropriate show for children. And then Korra came along and it was a lot darker. Like in Avatar, there's no like violent death. Like it's more like the bad guys realize that they're bad and then go crazy, you know what I mean? Versus the good guys actually killing the bad guys, which I don't have a problem with the good guys killing the bad guys in movies, but it's like, you know, in kid shows, a lot of times the bad guys do not get killed. And in Korra, it just got so much darker. And then her attitude, along with everything else, I was like, I don't know if I can handle this, girlfriend. And also, we don't have Sokka, who's like the best character in the entire franchise. So I had a lot of complaints. I mean, Sokka did have a guest appearance, but it wasn't long enough. So anyway, I guess the point is I still need to finish Korra, but I loved Naga and I thought she was pretty much one of the best characters in the show. From what I heard from my friends, people agree with me. They don't like Korra as much, but I'm interested to know all of your opinions about it. So we've just finished our second row of 1 stitch in each stitch around. So now your piece is gonna look like this. And now we're gonna start decreasing to slope her head back down. For this next row, we're going to do 3 single crochet stitches, and then we're gonna do something called a decrease stitch. And a decrease stitch is where you basically combine 2 stitches into 1. So I'm going to go through the first stitch and I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to go through the second stitch and I'm going to yarn over. So now I have 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over again and go through all 3, combining those 2 stitches into 1. So I had 3 single crochet stitches. Now we have a decrease stitch, 3 single crochet stitches, and now we're going to do our second decrease stitch, 3 single crochet stitches again. And now this is what your piece should look like. You can see that it's starting to come back down. So now I'm just going to finish out the row with single crochet stitches, and your piece will look like this. So now for our next row, 2 single crochet stitches and a decrease stitch, 2 single crochet stitches and a decrease stitch, 2 single crochet stitches and a decrease stitch. And this time we're going to do 1 more, 2 single crochet stitches and 1 decrease stitch, and then finish off with our single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Your piece should look like this. We want this side to slope down, and we want this bottom side to get larger and wider for her chest. So now I'm going to move my marker again, doing 2 single crochet stitches into the first stitch of the row. And then I'm going to do 2 single crochet stitches, 1 in each stitch, and then I'm going to do a decrease stitch, followed by 2 single crochet stitches and a decrease stitch, followed by 2 more single crochet stitches. Now in the last 3 stitches of the row, we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch. And you guys are doing amazing sticking through this. So this is what your piece should look like now. So for this row, we're going to do 9 single crochet stitches. And now I'm going to do 5 stitches where I do 2 single crochets in each stitch. And now your piece will look like this. So for this next row, I'm going to begin with 3 single crochet stitches, followed by a decrease stitch. Then I'm going to do 3 single crochet stitches, followed by a decrease stitch. Then I'm going to do 3 single crochet stitches, followed by 2 single crochet stitches. So that's 5 single crochet stitches in all. For the final 6 stitches of the row, we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches into each one. So now your piece is going to look like this. So for the next row, we're going to do 21 single crochet stitches, and then for the last 4 stitches of the row, we're going to do 2 decrease stitches. I'm going to do a couple rows, and I'm going to do this thing that I do sometimes that is hard to document because it's kind of random. For the next section of her body, I'm going to move my marker so that I know exactly where I left off, and then I'm going to do this process where I stitch 1 stitch in each stitch around, but I do random decrease stitches to make sure it's not getting too wide. So that might sound really daunting, so I will explain to you how I'm doing it. So I'm just going to start single crochet stitching. So I did 4 single crochets, and now I'm going to do a decrease stitch. So I've done 10 single crochets, so now I'm going to do another decrease stitch, a couple more single crochets, and then when I approach the beginning of my row, because that's where I had a lot of extra stitches, the very last 2 stitches of the row, I'm going to do a decrease stitch. So I only did 3 decrease stitches in all, but now it looks like this, and it didn't get any wider, so I'm happy about that. So now for this next row, I am only going to do 1 stitch in each stitch around until I get to the last 2 stitches of the row where I'm going to do another decrease stitch. So now we have 19 stitches all the way around, and this is what Naga looks like. Her neck has gone down, and I want to bring her back up a little bit. That's going to be 3 single crochets in, and then I'm going to do the next 3 stitches, 2 stitches in each, and finish out the row in single crochet stitches. So now instead of 19, we're going to have 22 stitches all the way around. And now your piece will look like this. Now I'm going to move my marker one more time. So I'm going to do, I think, 4 rows of just 1 stitch in each stitch around. So after your 4 rows of just single crochet stitches, your piece is going to look like this. Okay, so for this next row, I'm going to do 6 single crochet stitches, followed by a decrease stitch. And then I'm going to repeat that pattern 2 more times, and it's going to go off the edge of the row. I think I'm going to use the first stitch of the next row to do the final decrease stitch, but that's okay. So in the end, we will have 19 stitches instead of 22. So now for the next row, I'm going to do 5 single crochet stitches followed by a decrease stitch and repeat that pattern 3 times. But this time, when I get to the end of the row, I'm not going to do the decrease stitch, so we really just repeated it twice and then did 5 single crochet stitches. So now this is what your piece is going to look like. I'm going to do what we always do. We're going to move our marker. Nope, not like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch from here to here, single crochet stitches. So that is
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So we're gonna have 9 single crochet stitches. We're going to do some decrease stitches. So I'm going to do 2 decrease stitches. So it should look like this. It's curving up just like we wanted. So now we're going to do a similar thing again. I'm going to do 9 single crochet stitches again. Now, before we move on to doing the decrease stitches, we're going to stuff the body because the opening is getting rather small. So after stuffing, Naga looks like this, and she looks really good. She looks awesome. So I make sure to reshape all the pieces just to make sure it's exactly how we want them. So go ahead and put your hook back into your loop and make it nice and small again. Oh dear. Oh no. What's happening? Okay, good, we got it. We're still on that row. If you remember, we just did our 9 single crochet stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and do our decrease stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3 decrease stitches. So now your piece should look like this. Another row of just decrease stitches to cinch off this tail. So after doing decrease stitches all the way around, your piece is gonna look like this. There's still gonna be an opening. Slip stitch into the next stitch, and a slip stitch is where you go through the stitch, yarn over, and then just pull through the loop on your hook. Cut your yarn. So now we have finished Naga's head and body. Make her front legs. You're going to start with your slip knot and you're going to chain 2, and then you're going to do 6 single crochet stitches into the first chain that you made. Then your piece is going to look like this, and then you're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around to change your 6 stitches into 12. Then your piece is going to look like this. For the next 4 rows, you're just going to do 1 stitch in each stitch around. So go ahead and place your marker and then do 4 rows of just 1 stitch in each stitch around. My air conditioning just came on and I can really tell that my neighbors are having a really fun night. I can smell it. Love that. Love that for me. I got a candle, so hopefully that helps get rid of this smell that I don't like. This is my favorite candle, by the way. It's from Target, and it's the HomeSense Coconut Berry Bliss. And it is a soy-based candle, which I know isn't the best, but it literally smells amazing, and it's not super obnoxious, and I don't like super smelly candles. Anyway, 4 rows of 12 single crochets. When you're done with all 4 of those rows, your piece will look like this. And now we're going to do a decrease row. So for the first stitch, I'm going to do 1 single crochet. For the second stitch, 1 single crochet. But for the third stitch, I'm going to do a decrease stitch. We're going to repeat that pattern. So 2 single crochets followed by a decrease stitch. And then we're going to do it a third time, 2 single crochets followed by a decrease stitch. So now we should have 9 stitches all the way around. So now we're going to do 4 more rows of just 9 stitches all the way around. I'm going to move my marker up to the current row and then do 4 rows of 9 single crochets around. For Naga's back legs, you're going to start off with 2 chains and you're going to do 5 single crochets into the first chain, and your piece is going to look like this. Then for the second row, we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around so that our 5 turn into 10. At the end of your second row, your piece should look like this. So now for our third row, we're just going to do 1 stitch in each stitch around, so 10 stitches again. And then your piece will look like this. First thing we're going to do is 4 half double crochets, and a half double crochet is where you yarn over before you go through the stitch. Where you yarn over again, you'll have 3 loops on your hook, then you can yarn over and go through all 3. So I'm going to do just 1 in each stitch for 4 stitches, and then after those 4 half double crochets, I'm just going to finish out the row with 6 single crochet stitches till I get back to my marker, and we're going to repeat that process for 2 more rows. When you're done with those 3 rows, your piece will look like this. So it'll have a slight curve to it where the half double crochets made one side a little bit bigger. Now the next 5 rows, we're just going to do 1 stitch in each stitch around, and you're going to make 2 back feet, and they will look like this, kind of like little Christmas stockings. So to make Naga's ears, you're going to begin by chaining 3, and then skipping the last chain that you did, you're going to do 2 half double crochets back across, and then you're going to chain 1 and turn your piece. So now you're going to do 2 half double crochets into the first stitch and 2 half double crochets into the second stitch. So you have 4 half double crochets in total. Then you're going to chain 1 and turn. Now what you're going to do is a half double crochet in the first stitch, and then you're going to do a decrease stitch into the next 2 stitches, and then you're just going to tie off, leaving that last stitch hanging. But chain 1 and then cut your yarn, and then your ear is going to look like this. So you're going to make 2 of those for Naga's ears. So now we have all of the pieces ready to go. So I'm going to get my yarn needle and we're going to start stitching them on. So the way I like to sew on limbs onto animals is you stuff it as much as you want, and then you pinch the top like this. And then you take your leftover yarn and you can whip stitch across to close up that seam. And then you have a flat top so that when you attach it to your animal, it can just go flush against the side. And so I will stitch across the top with my yarn, and then I'll go back in and I'll stitch here so that the legs can't just flail out unless you want your animal to be able to lay their legs flat. So that's how I'm going to stitch on all of the legs. And then for the ears, you're just going to find the place that you want to put them and stitch them on with the excess yarn. Guys, I just realized I forgot to make her tail. Okay, we gotta go do that. But also, does this remind you of those like Victoria's Secret dogs that they give out when you like spend so much money? Doesn't this kind of look like that dog? I don't know. So to make her tail, we're gonna start off with our slip knot and then chain 2. And tails are tricky. Whenever I make tails for animals, you have to crochet them so thin that it's really very difficult for me to do it, but we're gonna try it and see what happens. We're gonna do 4 single crochet stitches into this first chain that we did. After that, I'm going to pull on the tail to cinch it nice and tight, and then we're going to do 4 stitches again, so 1 in each. And this is what I mean because it's tricky, because it's so small, there's like no room for the hook. So you can go down in a hook size. Sometimes that helps if you were stitching super tightly. When you're done with that row, your piece is gonna look like this. So we're gonna do 4 more rows of just 1 stitch in each stitch around, so only 4 stitches. So after those 4 rows, your piece will look something like this. Now we're gonna increase the amount of stitches. So we have 4 stitches all the way around, so I'm basically going to increase it to 6 by doing a single crochet and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then repeating that with the next 2 stitches to turn our 4 stitches all the way around into 6. And then your piece is going to look like this. So now I'm going to do 4 rows of 1 stitch in each stitch around for these 6 stitches. So now your piece looks like this. So now we're going to repeat that process where I'm going to do an increase row, 2 single crochet stitches before I do my 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and you're going to repeat that 3 times. So now instead of your 6 stitches, you're going to end up with 9 stitches. So for Naga's tail, I decided to try a new method that I'd never tried before. So I tried to make her tail fluffy, threaded yarn through the top of the cylindrical tail that we made after I'd sewn it on to her body, and then I used a comb to brush out the yarn to make it fluffy. And I think it looks cute. You kind of have to push it down and add a lot to make it nice and fluffy, but I think it looks really cute and it gives a lot of character to her. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. It was really fun to make, and actually it was one of the quicker amigurumis that I've made for Avatar, so that was fun. And I think she's gonna look so cute next to Pabu and Appa on my shelf. Naga will fit in perfectly because I'm really proud of how she turned out. I really think she's really cute. So I really hope you get a chance to make this tutorial. Please let me know in the comments if you have any requests for a tutorial, because I'm always open to suggestions, and just let me know if there are any specific characters that you'd like me to make, or just a generic animal of any kind, and I'll put it on my list. And if you have any questions about the pattern, just drop those in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you next Wednesday for another video. Bye guys! $18 stitches all the way around. Why can't I do math? That would be 20 stitches all the way around. Alright, scrap that last row. We're gonna do it again. I don't like how that looks. No, it went in too far. It went in too far. Okay, so scrap everything I just said. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak English. Nope, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. Nope, 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 nope. Tear it out. What is this? Piece of cookie dough? Unacceptable. Wow. Oh gosh. I messed up.